On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, the SCAR 20 disaster, hunting with a 50 BMG, Dave Portnoy to sue the Bengals, and bullet bunkers. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kraken and Markey, and this is episode 323 of the John1911 Podcast. It's currently 9:18 Eastern Standard Time, and we're finally, getting maybe a regularly scheduled podcast going. I have to warn the listener that at my current location, I have terrible internet. And so while that will not affect the quality of the recording for you, the listener, because we do something called a double ender, which sounds like like a swinger scene, Kraken may have to ask me to repeat questions every once in a while, or he may not be able to hear me. So that'll be what's going on. And because now it is November, end of November, he has his fire going again. So just like last year, you might occasionally hear a few pops and crackles, snap, crackle, pops from his wood-burning fireplace as he sits in his rocking chair with a blanket over his legs, drinking whatever adult beverage that he's drinking. So, did I paint a good enough picture?
Well, just drinking ice water tonight, trying to get a
Okay.
little healthier. So, but got the fire roaring.
Adult. Okay, so grown-up ice water. So, yeah, I'm drinking
Exactly.
seltzer from Kroger, seltzer water, 0 calorie. Sparkling. So, yeah. Well, it's been a minute. What's been going on with you, stranger?
Well, I'll tell you what, been battling quite a lung infection over the last month. Really kind of put me on my butt real good. So just now kind of getting my feet under me. I got out for one day of deer season, and that's about as far as I've gotten anywhere in the month of November.
Man, you know what? You stocked up, the freezer for. Is that deer already processed and chopped up and put away in the freezer, or is it
Oh
hanging
yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
cold? And
The
you
only
do
thing
you
I've
do
got
it
left to
yourself?
do is, yeah, I do it all myself. I've got my jerky strips marinating right now, and then they'll go on the smoker tomorrow or the next day, depending on the weather, and then vacuum seal the jerky up after it cools, and that deer's completely processed.
Do you flavor your jerky with any types of anything, or you just do it straight jerky?
I use a marinade that I get from a big box store called Shields. It's kind of the Midwestern version of Cabela's Bass Pro Shop. It's a liquid marinade, so I just put it in a Ziploc bag and uh, go stir the bag around a little bit for a couple days, and then throw it on the smoker and throw a little extra hickory to it.
Damn,
But
this
I'm
sounds
kind of
like some
weird.
good jerky, dude.
I'll send you some.
You need
Uh,
to, seriously.
but everybody's like, oh, I hate deer. I wouldn't eat a mangy old deer. But hey, you got any jerky?
Yeah, yeah, huh? Yeah. You got any jerky? Yeah. What do you think it is? Ring
Yeah.
roll? I mean, of course it's a deer. This isn't Korea. We eat deer here. So
But
I
I've
could
still
have
got
res-
a muzzleloader tag and a couple of doe tags. So hopefully December, I get muzzleloader season all of December. So
Oh,
hopefully
okay.
put a couple more in the freezer. And
I've never actually hunted at our range. I don't think. I don't. I mean, I've been out there when other people are hunting and kind of been on standby to help, but I've never
Mhm.
actually bought a tag. I don't even know if I technically have to buy tags. I'm not even sure how that works because I get some, I guess, as the landowner. But once we get this new barn built, there's a better chance that I might, do some more hunting. Might even muzzle loading seems interesting to me. You know, could I take a Shiloh Sharps rifle and somehow turn that into a muzzle loader? Is there maybe like an insert I could put in and still hunt with the Sharps through muzzle loading season?
Not that I have ever heard of. Not saying it can't be done, but I've never heard of any type of conversion to do that.
Okay, I know you can do it with the Mossberg shotguns. So, but
Yeah,
you know
they came
what?
with a barrel.
Well, I actually do have a Civil War era. What's that musket? Like it's a Civil War era musket. It's on the website somewhere. Pictures of it. Like there's an 1858 Springfield.
Mhm.
and actually has carved into it because they surplused it. The federal government surplused it to the states. And at some point, it was surplus to the Ohio National Guard, and carved into the wood is ONG, Ohio National Guard. And then in the 60s, they surplused. In the 1960s, they surplused it out to the public, and it went to this family, and they actually went to Freeze's family, and one of his relatives, they sold it, and it was for sale, and I scooped it up. So technically, I have a muzzle loader. I
That
mean, I
sounds
don't
like
know.
that'd be a fun one to hunt with.
Could be. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it in the rain. Like it's kind of a collectible. I mean, I think, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a possibility. As I've got more time at the range as opposed to just, because I feel like when I'm at the range, most times I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Either trying to
Yeah.
take care of the property, get practice in, filming content, or getting ready for, police officers to come shoot. So it'd
Yeah.
be nice to have more downtime out, more time to like come up with, the devil finds work for idle hands, and I could use some idle time out there at the range to come up with some cool ideas. So yeah, it's a possibility. I even, since we've packed up the armory, I have even, because I keep forgetting we have this. I have this crossbow. I don't think I've ever fired it. It's a crossbow that's an upper that bolts onto an AR lower, and
Okay.
the bolts, I swear to God, are almost 3 feet long.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this thing, like, you got to have a crank to charge it. It's got a crank handle on it. I think
Yeah.
it'll shoot over 200 yards.
Well,
Like
there's a lot
it.
of the new modern ones that, are claiming, you know, just outlandish ranges like that. I've crossbow hunted, but, I've never had to shoot past about 30, 35 yards, but
Yeah, but I've
there's
got
guys
it. Maybe
doing
I,
it.
yeah, yeah. Maybe I could go back there and whack bullwinkle one year or something. So I don't know. Maybe I could. Maybe I could shoot a deer, find somebody to process it locally, and be like, I want all jerky. Something. I want 200 pounds of jerky. Or
Well,
I don't know.
you want to pull the loins and steak those because that's just good eating. Uh,
I mean, I'm
and then
not going to
put
cook
the
it. I mean, I'm not.
you,
I mean,
so I'll have to come out and cook it for you, is what you're saying.
yeah, probably. So, I mean, that now in my mind, I'm thinking, well, shit. I guess I need a freezer now in that barn. So it's like I might need a freezer to hang deer in or to store deer stuff. So, but that's again why it's a giant ass barn. And if we run out of room, I'm not opposed to buying shipping containers and
Yeah.
putting electric in them and just basically turning it into a compound. So we're out there enough. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on. I've been keeping the shooting a little bit to a minimum because we do have hunting going on around the range, and I don't want to be too much of a jerk, to
Yeah.
some of the, we have hunters all around us. As a matter of fact, do you remember? I just saw this the other day. So there's on the spine trail on the back of our property. I've talked about it on pod. I've never posted a picture of it, but there's along the fence line between the neighbor's farm that I tried to buy, and the family, somebody swooped in and they've got a land contract on it. But they have a deer stand that literally is up against, it's within 5 feet of the fence line. And I have a giant road. It's a trail that's a road. I drive my truck down and my tractor. And it's the spine trail, and it goes all the way down that edge of the property to get to the very back of the John 1911 range. And this deer stand is deliberately set up the hunt on my property. It's kind of a dick move. And so I've made it a point every year to run vehicles. You know what I mean? And just I'm not
Mhm.
trying to run vehicles down there to like fuck up their hunting, but it's just like, motherfucker, this is a road, and you can't be shooting like back here because like you could hit somebody. Like we're back here
Yeah.
admitting the property, so I've been making it a point during to kind of bust that stand. Well, this year I've noticed There's another, it's a field in the far back corner. It's the same, it's a straight line from what I just described, but it's way past it. And you keep going down the spine trail and opens up to a field, a small field, and we call it the Primitives Corner. And that is a three-way property intersection. And on the fence line now in the Primitives, on the other side, that neighboring farm still, is a deer stand, and it's up near the fence line, but it's actually pointing the other way, and it's into the woods on their side. So I was kind of glad to see that. And it's a really high one too, because I was
Yeah.
going through the other day and I noticed the ladder. I'm like, fuck, there's a ladder, and I looked up, and I was in a tractor, and I looked up. And this deer stand is way the fuck up there. This is one of the tallest ones I've ever seen in real life. It's probably 3 stories
Oh,
tall.
wow.
It's got to be. It's beyond 2 stories. It's up there. So it's like, well, okay, that's fine. So,
Yeah, I
and
think
I've
that's a
noticed,
hard pass for me.
yeah. Well, they've had what was it? We've already had a couple accidents around here. We've had I know two hunters that have been shot. We've had two hunters, I think maybe they shot themselves. They've had accidents and they shot themselves. We've had one incident where a woman was shot in the woods walking her dog. And then we've had one incident where a child has fallen out of a deer stand and apparently was so grievously injured that they life flighted the kid.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so like they didn't say like if it was like like you say child, you don't like is it like an 8-year-old up in a deer stand or if it's like a 15-year-old. They didn't really say because they don't give a lot of
Yeah.
information and it was like the next county. Well, so like our property's in 2 counties, so like the other side of the back county. So basically if you're at the barn, it would be 2 counties away. If you're at the back of the property, it's 1 county away. And
Gotcha.
so I don't know any cops over there, and haven't heard anything. But we've already had a rash of some shit within probably 50 miles. 50-mile radius. Where the shit makes the news. Yeah, so it's been pretty active. Hunting is in full swing around here.
Yep, we're
I don't.
kind of winding down. Our rifle season's over, so now we're just archery and muzzleloader, and everybody's getting all excited to get their thermals out and start busting coyotes since we got a little snow this weekend.
Does the snow help with the coyotes, or does snow help with the thermal? I'm not sure what that statement means.
Well, if you're hunting them at night when you're calling them in, they're way easier to see if there's snow on the ground because there's just contrast, a little bit of moonlight. Uh,
Okay.
so it's just I know there's places where guys coyote hunt year round. It's kind of a regional thing here. It's kind of a wintertime activity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so before thermals actually became a thing, we really look forward to the 3/4 full moon nights with snow on the ground because you could see them coyotes coming in from quite a ways away.
Okay. Yeah, around here, I've never actually coyote hunted, um, which is weird because I'm surrounded by a bunch of cops that actually get paid to do it. And like the rule of like I'd always heard it was, when the deer when gun season starts for deer, there's so many gut piles that it's really hard to coyote hunt because they're not really that hungry
Yep.
because they're on these gut piles. And so it's interesting that you're like, ooh, coyote or deer gun season's about over. It's time for coyote hunting. And it's like, really? Like that's interesting because what I've always heard around here that it's the exact opposite. Um, but actually, that reminds me, we had I wish I could remember. I think I know the person's name, but I don't want to miss say your name because you're probably listening to the podcast. We have a viewer and a reader and a listener and person who's around, and I've been emailing with him, and he was suggesting
he came up with this really interesting idea. He's a big coyote hunter, and he's got some kind of little perch set up in his barn, and he's got some thermal cameras set up permanently that just feed to a monitor inside of his perch. And I was like, that way you can kind of like, you can just kind of be in there, calling him in or doing whatever you're doing, and you don't have to be in the glass constantly looking for shit. You can kind of do an area view. Then you're like, oh, something's coming in. Then you get on glass. And he was giving me the prices, and it was like, yeah, this and that, maybe $600. Like, it was like, oh, shit, that's interesting. Because if you're not trying, because I think of thermal, if you're not trying to stick it on a rifle, it doesn't have to cost $12,000. And it's like, well, shit, I could put up a thermal camera and a little monitor inside of the quote Coyote Door, and sit there and kind of passively watch the entire range when I'm hunting, and then get in a position when shit's moving. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's a good idea.
And then if you've got a little bit of snow cover, especially on a full moon night, you can see them dogs coming in from a long ways away.
Well, we can see many hundreds of yards on that rifle range. So, I can literally hunt the range and hunt the fields.
Yeah.
I have to be
So,
somewhat cognizant of what's behind us. Not that there's nothing back there, but I don't want stuff flying in the air. But
yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting. Oh, that reminds me. So do you know anything about Amish people?
Uh, just enough to be dangerous. We've got more Mennonites than we do Amish around here, but we've got a decent mix of both. A lot of Mennonites right around my neck of the woods. So
Okay, and like Mennonites are not as strict as Amish, right?
yeah, it's kind of like Amish light.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I haven't really run into a Mennonite in about 30 years. And so, we've hired these Amish people to build the barn, and it's turned into basically a poured foundation building at this point. It's not even a pole barn, it's literally a building. And so I had to go meet with them, sign contracts, and do all that. And, I've been interfacing with them quite a bit. And it's been interesting because number one, they don't drive. Like if they come to the range, they don't own cars, but they I'm like, oh, we'll drive on up, and I'm like, okay, and they'll show up, and they'll sometimes they'll be in a little car, sometimes they'll be in a truck or an SUV, and like three Amish guys will get out, and there'll be a guy driving who doesn't get out, who immediately pulls out his phone and starts texting or whatever, and what it is, that's their driver. I'm going somewhere with this. So it's okay. They hire drivers because they're not allowed to, I guess, drive or own vehicles or something. I'm not quite sure how that works. And it's like, that makes sense. And so I had this Amish guy on property, and he's the one I ultimately ended up hiring. And it turns out he does like guns. Like we were talking, he's like, yeah, I'm going down to the Louisville gun show tomorrow with my son. We're looking for some things. And his son bought his first AR. And I was like, oh, let me show you my AR. And I pulled out this suppressed upper gun. He'd never fired a gun with a suppressor on it, and I literally put the gun up, and right before he looks through the sight, I put my hand over the red dot, and I say, wait a minute, I need to ask you a question. And I realized I look like an asshole. I was like, this has an electronic red dot sight on it. Is there a problem with you, using that? Because I want to be respectful to your faith. And he's like, oh, no, it's not a problem. So I take my hand off the sight, and he's shooting the suppressed AR down the rifle range. And, he hits when I tell him, like, oh, no, hold it up here. But he was missing, like, he was trying to hit stuff at 200 yards, but it really left an impression on him. And so I was like, oh, this guy's a gun guy. And so, he has a cell phone, and the Amish guys I've talked to, they have cell phones. They don't text. They cannot text. They won't text you back. They get no text messages. They also don't have voicemail. They do not have voicemail messages, and they'll leave you voicemail, but they do not have voicemail to check. And then I come to find out that typically when they have these cell phones, they're not in their name. The cell phones are in their drivers' names. So they don't technically own the cell phone by virtue of their, for their faith. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's like, all right, well, I'm telling you all that. I'm like, okay, this one guy, he's got the job. He comes highly recommended. He builds $1 million pig barns. Like he's a super high-end builder. And it's like, all right, he's really organized, and he's a known quantity to the county and the inspectors out there. So everything is settled down. So it's like, I'm gonna go to his house one night, and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna draw up the contract, and he's gonna, we're gonna do it, and at his house, and it's like whatever time, it's like 7:30 at night after they eat dinner, and he gives me directions to his home, and it's about 4 or 5 miles from the range, so he even lives close to the range. And I find this place; it's completely dark. There's no lights, and I see some lights off in the distance, and I pull up, and I get it. He's like, "Hey, Mark," and Mark, "Hey," and so I go into his house, and it's like a giant box. The big kitchen opens up in the dining area and opens up to a sitting area. And it might have had a perpendicular bend to it, but it was a big house, but it was a box. And there were probably 15 people there. There were a ton of women. As a matter of fact, there were no there were no men inside the house except for the old Amish guy. And it was all women. It was the wife, and there were kids, and then there were grandkids, but it was all women. There were no men in there at all, except for me and him. And they're doing the dishes, they're doing whatever. Like, it was just like, there's a lot of people here. It's like, okay, but it's very well lit. It's very brightly lit, and I couldn't really tell what the light source was. But it reminded me of like that light that's so bright it's blue, like hospital lighting. So it was electric, and this house was lit up like the inside of a hospital. It's like, okay. So he gets out and he's writing out the contract on 3-ply paper, three-part paper, carbon. Remember carbon paper? So like there's the top copy, a middle copy, and a bottom copy. And he will write
Yeah.
this all out, and we're discussing stuff. And I spring the Coyote Door on him for hunting. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And we get to talk. I was like, "Yeah, just so I can kind of crawl up there in the trusses and do whatever." And he's like, "Well, because he's this big Amish guy. He's this like high-end builder." He's like, "Well, here's what we're going to do." He goes, "We're going to put a room up." He says, "We're going to get attic trusses. We're going to have attic trusses built on that part. And so it'll be a room." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want this to be a bunch of money." He's like, "No, no, no." He says, "It's not really." He says, "We'll just have attic and he drew the trusses out so you can get up there. And so it's now going to turn into a room about 6 feet tall, maybe 5 and a half, may have to hunch down a little bit, but so crawl up there. And then, we're working on a door concept, but he's like, "Well, yeah, we can do this." And then he's like, well, he goes, "Do have you ever seen stairs where like you pull a string and the stairs will telescope down?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He's, so, like I've seen him in like attics, like in houses. Well, he's like, "Well, let's get some of those stairs and we'll put them up there with a string, with a small rope, and then you can pull those down and we don't have to build some bullshit ladder that I have to climb up." And I'm like, "Well, how much does that cost?" And he's like, they're like $300 or something. I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, how much weight do they hold?" Because, I'm 250, and, Doc and some people, they could be, they'd be more than 250. And so he's like, no, they're rated like 300 pounds or something. And I was like, okay, okay. Maybe it's 500 for the stairs, but I was like, all right, that's fine. And so it was really neat. He's taken my Coyote Door idea, the hunt, and how it's going to be set up. And so now I even be able to kind of stand up there. Well, if there's going to be a room, in theory, I can just get a normal shooting bench up there. I'll do that myself. I'm not going to pay Amish dudes to build that shit. So we're doing all of that. I mean, it's like, this is kind of cool, And then while this is happening, I see some headlights come down the driveway. And then a boy comes in, who's under, I don't know, he could have been 20, he could have been 17, wasn't really clear to me, an Amish boy. And he's like, yeah, someone's coming down the driveway, Pop. And the dad goes, it's like, oh, that's so and so. He's probably bringing metal. So go, and he says, go ahead and take the skid steer and put it over in the whatever in that bar. He's like, okay, and he goes out and they disappear and they're unloading. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you have a fucking skid steer? You're an Amish guys have skid steers? Like, I just don't, like, I'm so confused because I don't understand how all this stuff is supposed to work. Are you there? Did I lose you?
Yep. When I first ran across my first Mennonites and Amish back in the 80s, it was a little more of, what we would think traditional Amish and Mennonite would be. And it's completely different now. Like the Mennonites around here, they own vehicles, they own businesses, they have electricity, phones, cell phones. So I think there's probably grudgingly been some accommodations made for the Amish and the Mennonites to be able to continue to make a living and keep up with the modern world.
Yeah, but a skid steer,
Yeah,
an $80,000 skid steer, the small bulldozer. It's like,
yeah.
okay, it's like, this is interesting. I was like, I don't know, I was kind of shocked by that. And I remember as a couple months ago when I first started talking to the Amish. Do you remember when the federal government did that national emergency alert test at like
Mm-hmm.
2 o'clock in the afternoon or something, or whatever time it was? Or
Yeah.
maybe it was, I don't know what, maybe they did it by time zone because it couldn't have been 2 o'clock for everybody unless they rolled it, unless it was a rolling test. Well, I remember reading in the news later, there were a bunch of Amish people around the country that had gotten in trouble with their leaders because they would have a cell phone hidden on their person somewhere, some little small cell phone, and it would start chiming, you know, and a bunch of guys got caught with cell phones that apparently weren't supposed to have cell phones, and it caused some drama. Like, I guess, I don't know if they get shunned or they're on double secret probation or whatever. But it's this whole Amish thing. Oh, and then there's one more thing. So because we're pouring this foundation, I forgot to tell you that too. So we're pouring this foundation, right? And so there's going to be heavy footers, and then there's going to be a slab. And apparently it's so big, it's not going to be a monolithic pour. It's going to be two pours, I think. And the cement guy is an Amish guy. And so he comes out, and we've picked the site, and he's squaring up the location, and they're gonna, it's 2 foot footers, and all this kind of shit. And I'm talking to my bulldozer guy who did all the backstops and stuff on the range, and I was like, so how does an Amish guy show up with concrete? Like, I mean, like, what does
Mm-hmm.
that look like? Like, I don't know. Like, does he have like a horse and buggy with, again, this is before I went to the Amish guy's house with the skid steer. And he laughs and he goes, they just call the cement truck like everybody else. I'm like, okay, well, what the fuck am I paying him for? I mean, like, I get it's fine. But, it's just like all those kind of, it's been a learning. I mean, I'm literally, this has gone from putting my hand over the red dot, the aim point on a rifle, as a Amish guy's holding my rifle, is about to look through it, and I'm go, hey, dude, can you use the electric in this rifle? Like, I don't want to, it's like, I don't want to hand a Jewish guy a ham sandwich, and I don't want to hand an Amish guy an electric sight and be the dickhead, at least try to be respectful. And apparently I just look like a fucking moron, these dudes,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I guess
But
the one
you're
more
like
thing.
me. I'd rather err on the side of being respectful
Yeah.
versus
Well, sure.
just not give it any consideration at all.
Yeah. So one more thing that is like, it'll be like maybe $500. It could be less. The guy's like, it won't be more than $500. The cement guy. So we have a 600-yard shooting position. We don't really shoot from it that much because it's kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess. You're either in the snow or you're in the mud or you're in the ticks, and it's right behind the shipping container. So if you see the shipping container on our front field, if you go right behind that shipping container, it looks right down the rifle range, and from that position, there's a space behind the shipping. It's a hill, and there's a space, and it's not flat. It curves, so you have to kind of lay across the top of this hill. It's a dead even 600 yards to the back of the rifle range as it currently exists. It's supposed to go farther, but we got 600 now. And from there, you can theoretically back up and fake 700 yards. But I've got a dead 6 all day if I need it. Well, it's like, well, look, if I got all this construction going on and all this crap and I'm spending all this money, I had the cement guy come over and I pulled out a rifle. I was like, this is a gun range, right? And he's like, yeah, I heard. And so I showed him the rifle range and I showed him the position. And what they're going to do is they're going to cut out the edge of the top, like, I don't know, 90 degrees of that hill, maybe about 2 feet, maybe 18 inches, maybe not even that much. And they're going to flatten it out and they're going to pour like a 7 foot long, 7 or 8, no, maybe a 9 foot long, 5 foot wide cement pad, and it's going to be perfectly flat, and so you can shoot prone from there, or you could shoot sitting or whatever, but you could shoot from there down to the 600 on the rifle range, and you don't have to be in the
Nice.
ticks or the mud or the weather. But after that guy left, I'm thinking, well, shit, it's going to be wide enough. I could just have put another shooting bench there. It'd be out under, in the weather, and so the birds would shit on it. But it would be there. Like, oh fuck, I mean, I can. If I get to the point that I don't feel like shooting prone, if I get like, oh, my back's hurting me or something, like I'm just decide, like I've got a dedicated cement shooting position now at 600 yards. So there's a lot going
Nice.
on. Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. So anyway, well, we're trying to get the foundation poured hopefully this week. The weather hasn't been cooperating, either the rain or the temperatures, because you don't want it to get down to freezing
Yeah.
when you pour. I guess that's what they tell me. I didn't know that, but I knew you couldn't really pour cement in the winter, and here we are trying to pour cement in almost goddamn December. And it's like, I just started in August, So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at with that. So that's the update, but the building itself probably won't even get built until the end of January at this rate, because the high-end barn builder guy with the skid steer, the skid steer and all the women, he is busy through the end of January building other stuff because he's
Yeah.
that much in demand, and so it's like, well, I guess we'll just hold out to the end of January. And then once that happens, we still have to do all the electric, all the insulation, HVAC. I imagine a septic will get dug in, but it's going to be John 1911 is really crippled right now, and it's going to be crippled through most of the winter. And there's just no two ways about it. It's
Yeah.
just it's time to really pay the piper for selling the armory and banking that money. So here it
Yeah.
comes.
Now, don't forget that back room, for Kraken's lair.
We're putting in sleeping quarters. Are you there?
Still there?
Yeah,
Yep.
we're
You
putting in
bleeped out
sleeping
for a minute
quarters.
there.
We're putting in sleeping quarters.
Nice.
Yeah, there's going to be over. There's basically going to be 800 square foot apartment
Very nice.
with its own separate HVAC. There's going to be a washer and dryer, shower, toilet, sink, refrigerator, kitchenette area. Probably not a stovetop, but I could. And high speed fiber optic internet. and it's all going to be pine board and finished on the inside. And that is going to be that space is going to be also 3-inch spray foamed itself, so it can have its own. Like if I decide we're freezing out the garage, they call it the garage, the barn where the tractor is. I can still run at 72 degrees in the living quarters, and it's not a problem. That's why this damn barn is so expensive. So, because it's just like, well, do this and do this and do this and do this, and so, yeah, drains in
Yeah,
the
but
floor.
once
It's
you
got
once you
yeah,
get it done, you'll like it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, this barn will have 2 hot water hose bibs in the barn, so you can run your hose cold water or hot water. So I want to wash my tractor with hot water. Yeah, it's a fancy. Trust me, this is going to be the fanciest barn in the county. I can already tell. Of course, what's going to happen is they're gonna because the county inspector knows all this. I've been told unofficially that even though it's a barn, that the county assessor will probably tax it as a house.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we'll see what the tax bill comes in, but it's the cost of doing business. So, the barn's been taking up a lot of time. And of course, then you and I are talking today. I got the good idea fairy. It was like, hey, I could get a bullet bunker and put it in there. Have you ever seen those before?
I've not seen that. The link you sent me, I've not seen that particular make and model,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen, similar concepts in action. I actually, when I was in high school, I had it was probably about an 18-inch square one that used to shoot in the basement with 22.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was it was real heavy. It was actually on wheels, and
Mm-hmm.
every so often you'd have to slide a piece of plywood in front of it, and that was your target backing, and then that's what kind of kept everything from ricocheting back at you. But we'd use that a lot in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. That bullet bunker, the one I sent you, is rated to take up to 50 BMG. For real. Like they're actually there. I looked at those, that brand. I had looked at those at Camp Perry when we were all still going up to Camp Perry. And the company that makes those is in like Norwalk, Ohio. So like if I
Oh,
needed
okay.
parts or service, it's actually here. But we're trying to, I reached out, I'm trying to figure out how much that thing weighs. Because some of them weigh 1,000 pounds, but one of them weighs 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if it's 5,000 pounds, so, like here's the thing: if
Mhm.
it's 5,000 pounds, my tractor forklifts, I don't think would lift it. I think my tractor forklift front end loader is only rated to like maybe just under 4,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't, like because I don't have like 100 horsepower tractor, and I don't have like the super heavy duty front end loader. Like there's a front end loader that's bigger that goes on those tractors, and we don't have that. So it's like fuck. If that thing weighs 5,000 pounds, my tractor can't even unload it off the tractor trailer. And it's like that means I'd have to call the people, the bulldozer people with their skid steers, and they would have to unload it. And it's like now
Yeah.
this is turning into a giant pain in the ass. And it's like, do I really need a bullet bunker in the barn at the gun range? And it's like I could, just because the barn will have a porch on it. The barn sits in front of the berm, the backside of the berm, so I could literally stand on the porch, turn, and shoot into the backside of the berm
Yeah.
for the pit. It's like, do I need a bullet bunker if I want to shoot a gun inside? It's like, well, then I've got the Coyote Door. I could shoot out the Coyote Door. And part of me is like, if I get that bullet bunker cheap, yeah. But if anything gets expensive on it, I'll be like, forget it. We don't
Yeah.
need it. So I got a
It'd be one.
question.
It'd be one of those that'd be fun to have. If you just want to do a function check real quick, and it's 10 below out, so you can just step into the garage and do it. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so,
Like
you
you
know,
said, you
it's,
can step out on the patio on the porch too. You know the way you've got it set up and do that.
yeah, right. I could literally go
Yeah,
up into the Coyote Door and I could shoot hundreds of yards out the Coyote Door. So it's
yeah.
like, well, I don't know. Like, do I need it? But we got to talk about something because you've hinted around
Okay.
about this for a while, and you need to bring people up to speed. You had bought a Scar 20,
hmm
and I'm under the impression that you ain't happy.
I'll tell you what. I don't know if I've ever wanted a rifle to work out so well in my life and been so utterly disappointed. You know, we talked several times about it, and it was the 1 in 10. I even checked it manually. It was the 1 in 10 barrel.
I know.
And when it
I
comes to 308, I really like the 168 grain bullets. So shouldn't have been any big deal. And I realized that the Scar 20 is a 400 to 600 yard rifle is really kind of
mm-hmm.
where it maxes out. And I would sit down and try and get this thing zeroed in and find a good load it liked at 100 yards. And when I shoot groups, I shoot 5-shot groups. I don't shoot
Mm-hmm.
threes,
Because
and
you're
I
not a
allow
bitch.
plenty of yeah, right.
Just yeah.
Uh, just had to throw that in there, didn't you?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh,
I hate 3-shot groups.
and I could never get a decent 5-shot group. I played with different powders, different primers, different cases. I mean, I did every trick I know. I segregated cases out by weight, so I would get a consistent volume. I played with collective overall length, uh, jump, jam, you name it. And probably the best group I got was counting all 5 shots was probably under 2 inches at 100 yards. And invariably, just about every load, I would get three that were like, yeah, okay, we might
Uh-huh.
be onto something with this load.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's tweak it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Get a couple, two or three.
You get those random flyers from those Scar 20s.
Yeah, and there was no rhyme or reason. Wasn't cooking the barrel. I was letting the barrel cool. Sometimes I'd take the same load and shoot them fairly rapidly and not let the barrel. I mean, nothing made a difference. I changed optics, thinking maybe I had optic issues. I changed rings, thinking maybe I had, some rings that were working loose. Tried it. I mean, I'll bet I tried 20 loads for this thing, including some factory match stuff that may not shoot lights out in all of my other rifles, but not having to work very hard were minute of angle loads in just about everything I shoot them in. So when you can't get 2 inches at 100 yards out of federal gold medal match 168 grainers, there's issues somewhere in there. I don't know if it's barrel quality or what it was, but I wasted so much powder and time on this thing that it finally went down the road.
So I have some observations and some experience to share on the Scar 20 and FNs in general. So I have some experience with an FN SPR A3G, which is the green precision rifle that they made um, for for the FBI. And this was a one in I think it was a 1 in 11. It could have been, maybe it's a 1 in 12. But that gun, like, it had a test target of, I remember, 0.315 MOA. It had a factory test target of 0.315 MOA. That's why I bought it. As a matter of fact, to tell the story, this gun belonged to a police department up north in Ohio, and it was purchased by a PD for an officer because he was going to be a sniper on their SWAT team up there. And he did something, and he got in trouble, and he wasn't going to be on that SWAT team. And so the gun came up for sale, and it had never been shot. And maybe he'd been kicked off before the gun was even delivered. But I got in contact with that chief because I found out what the test target was, and I drove up there in my little sports car, like a little Z4 BMW, years ago, and drove up and brought this gun home. And again, it had a test target of .315 MOA, and it was 168 grain federal gold medal match ammo, and it was shot by David Voss or Ben Voss. I don't know if he's still at FM, but he was like the head of their military law enforcement. You know, he was their chief, mill sales guy. He's a pretty well known guy, and he's a shooter. And I'm like, this is the gun, dude. This is gonna be the shit. And I couldn't get this gun to shoot for shit. And what it was, it took me a while to figure it out, is I was obsessed with shooting 175 grains, and I didn't want to shoot the lighter loads, and I couldn't get this gun to shoot for me. Doc was shooting it, but we were buying factory ammo, and I was even shooting ASIM ammo through it, and I could never get this gun to shoot right. And it's possible, me saying that, because I told you to buy the 1 in 10 SCAR, and FN came out with a 1 in 10, for the SCAR, because they originally came out with 1 in 11, 1 in 12, whatever the same twist on those SCARs. And those faster twists, they won't stabilize, or those slower twists, they won't stabilize those heavier bullets. And so I can't help but wonder if you trying to shoot 168 grain in a 1 in 10 twist, you would think it'd be fine, but a 168 grain in a 1 in 10 twist barrel, may just not have even been doable in that. It might just be because it's something with those FNs. Now, with all me making excuses, let's talk about Doc's SCAR 20. So Doc had a SCAR 20, and I think he has finally sold it. And we haven't really talked about it publicly too much. But Doc shot that gun for years. And he was shooting 168s, and he was shooting 175s, and he had a slower twist rate. And he was having problems. Like, it would just occasionally throw flyers, and it wasn't really grouping well. And so I was like, look, dude, this is one of those European guns. This is like the Blaser. They put those slow twist rates in them. Go down to 155s. And he was like, all right. So he went and he worked up a load for 155 grain. He worked up a load just for this goddamn gun. Because he didn't shoot. He shoots with the cops, and they don't shoot 155. They shoot 168s and 175s. That's what you shoot. But he worked up a 155 grain load, bought these 155 grain Sierras, and he got it to group. And it was grouping decent. He'd have moments of glory. And we would take it out to 500 yards, or he'd be shooting it even closer. He'd be shooting it, and all of a sudden he'd go, what the fuck? And I'm like, it threw a flyer, didn't he? He's like, that shot broke perfect. He's like, and this went on for years. And he'd be shooting it, what the fuck? And it would just throw these flyers. And like, it even got so bad, it was to the point, it's like, if you developed a tick, he'd get on another gun to fire a super tight group at 100 yards, 200 yards, and 500 yards. Be like, okay. I was like, well, okay, well, maybe it's because it's an automatic. It's like, the dwell time, or the lock time, and, all of that. So, he shoots a DPMS AR-10. He shoots that DPMS AR-10. He shoots the barrel out of those guns. And fucking group. And it's just finally got to the point that he's like, it's this goddamn gun. And here's the thing. And he doesn't quite see this, but I remember. He started off with a SCAR 17. And he got it, and he was shooting it, and he was playing with it. And that SCAR 17 was, man, he could do anything in the world with that SCAR 17. He never was unhappy with the SCAR 17. The only time the SCAR 17 and he shot 175s out of Scar 17. The only time that Scar 17 let him down is we were shooting with the SWAT team at, where was it? Was it Atterbury? No, we were at Thunder Valley. This has happened at Atterbury, but when I was there, we were at Thunder Valley, up in upstate Ohio. They have like a 2 mile range or whatever it was, and he was trying to take that Scar 17 out to like the 900 yards, and it was, I mean, this gun was just falling apart at 7. He could kind of wing it to hit shit at 700 yards, but he was, and anything
Yeah.
past, because he didn't have the barrel length, and he just didn't have the velocity, because it's a 16 inch, maybe 16-inch barrel or whatever it is on the
Yeah.
Scar 17. And so he just was always so tickled to death with that gun, with that Scar 17. And so when the Scar 20 came out, it's like, man, like, get this like 20 or 20. How long's the barrel on a Scar 17? Is it 24?
No, it's short. I think it's just 20
20?
inches.
20
Yeah.
inches? So, but like, whatever it was, he would get a couple more inches. So theoretically, maybe 300 more feet of, feet per second. And then it's got that great stock on the back of it. And, because much more ergonomic, like that stock on the back of that Scar 20 is dynamite compared to the Scar 17 for precision shooting. And he
Oh, yeah.
sold the 17 to pay for the 20, and the 20 is just ended up disgusting him. And
That's kind of right where I am.
and like, honestly, he was like, well, he's like, I need to sell this thing. And it was like, please don't shit all over this gun until after I sell it. So so he took it up to one of the high end gun stores, and that has the clientele that would buy it, and they bought it, and that's when he started buying all these Christensen Arms guns. He bought
Yeah.
the Christensen Arms carbon fiber bolt gun, and he bought the what's the gun from SIG that's the copy of the Q gun. He's got.
Oh, I can see it in my head, but I can't. I know what one you're talking about. I can see it in my
Yeah.
head.
And I even forgot. So the Scar 20, Doc had finally acquiesced and got a suppressor. And he stuck a suppressor on that Scar 20. And it was a Thunder Beast, because that's what I think, like, I can't remember if it was the Secret Service guys, they were running them. But it was a Thunder Beast suppressor. But like, even getting that gun to suppress that Scar 20 was a pain in the fucking ass. Like the shoulder on those barrels, on those scars, it's real small, so you got to buy some adapter to get the thing, because the gun would come loose, so you got to put the special piece on it to give it a shoulder to tighten it down. And then even if you put the gun on like a suppressor setting, or a low, or like, it's like normal, is it normal and high, or is it normal and low? But whatever the gas settings, the gun would try to beat itself up. Like, it was popping primers. It was just like, every time that goddamn Scar 20 hit the fucking range, it was a fucking disaster. And he just got to the point, I just got sick of it, because I spent more time with him fiddle fucking with that gun than I have really, really like done a 180 on the Scars. I used to really like them, and we have a Scar 16. I like that gun. I want to SBR and do all kinds of stuff with it. But that Scar 20 as a precision rifle is a dumpster fucking fire. It's a
Yeah, I
dumpster
messed around
fire.
probably 2 years trying to find one. When I first stumbled across them and went, wow, I really want one of those. You couldn't find one locally around here, and if one of the few shops that carried them would get one in, they were already spoken for.
Oh yeah.
So I finally stumbled across this one, and like I said, I've never wanted a rifle to work out so much in my entire life, and I mean it was just an abortion. It just I tried everything. because it became a matter of principle. I was just not going to give up on this gun. And then it got to the point where I gave up on it and it was just sitting in the gun safe. And I went to probably the highest end gun shop in Omaha and stumbled across that Wilson. So I thought, well, hell.
We haven't told people. Or
Yeah. So
have
I
we?
thought, well,
Did we
hell,
put
I'm
it
going to
up?
run home and get that scar and turn that scar into something that'll shoot.
Kraken went
So
and
I
got
brought that.
a X9L.
Yeah. So I brought that scar up. They didn't even want it. They're like,
Really?
we got 3 on the shelf we can't sell. We got a brand new one in the Desert Tan or whatever they call it.
That's the one that Doc always buys. He always wants the tan guns.
Yep. Brand new in the box, $3,100. And they're like, tell you what, we'll make you a good deal on this one. We don't even want yours. So I wound up, it was kind of a monkey fuck deal, but I wound up selling it to another gun store and then turned around and doubled back and bought that Wilson. But yeah, they didn't even want it.
Yeah, like I would be okay with a Scar 17. Like a Scar 17 to me is kind of a battle rifle that you can kind of use as a DMR. It's pretty interesting. I don't know about I've never been around one that's been suppressed. And I know there's a lot of angst because I think at some point FN was trying to say if you put a suppressor on a Scar, it voids the warranty. But you know, like if I had if a Scar 17 comes under my nose at a good price, like I have to buy it, I'd buy it. I might even keep it, but I would look at it as like the G3, like an HK91 or like the G3, or
Yeah.
PTR. It's a 308 battle rifle that's probably a little bit more accurate, and just treat it as that. You can get away with it, but that Scar 20. I mean, anything. What I would do is I would take the Scar 17, pull the stock off of it, and get a Scar 20 stock and put on it if you're that, because man, it's like that Scar 20 was a huge, huge disappointment. And
Yeah.
it took, and the thing is, it sounds like what you ran into. I mean, Doc, I don't know how many years Doc has had that Scar 20. But it's just like it went on and on. Like it's just like you just didn't really see it for what it was for years. But it just got to the point where the thing with the Scar, it throws these weird ass flyers. Like it was like I'm like, dude, like we were getting out torque wrenches, and I'm like, you got to torque those barrels to spec, and
Mm-hmm.
because I'm used to taking the 16 apart, I know how to take the whole barrel out of them, and then like, oh, and by the way, there's a there's a torqueable screw on the underside too. You got to torque it there. Like we were fiddle fucking with that thing nonstop for years, doing everything we could, and it never delivered. And it was just like Doc kind of left it behind, and it was like kind of gone back to bolt guns and his DPMS rifle, an AR-10 DPMS. Everybody laughs at that DPMS. He's about shot out his second barrel on that gun, and it
I had
shoots
that
and
exact same
shoots and
gun in
shoots.
223, and it was a shooting son of a gun.
Hmm.
Other than
People,
it takes 3 men and a boy to carry it around.
yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, it doesn't get. I think DPMS is even out of business now. But I mean, he's done
Mhm.
most of his SWAT sniper training when he's instructing for years. He was shooting because he's not shooting, an issued gun. He shot that DPMS,
Yeah.
and that thing gets the job done. It's like just the whole Scar thing is just hugely disappointing. And I'm not a Scar hater. I like them, but it's just like, good Lord. And, part of me was like, well, maybe those 6.5 Creedmoor Scars. I've been hearing that maybe they're having, those don't seem to put the numbers up that you would think they would.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I,
I,
I
and
was,
what really hurt was the stock on that scar is so nice. I mean, I got it adjusted, and boy, you could close your eyes, plant your cheek, open your eye, perfect focus on the scope.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Oh
just
yeah.
there. It was just there.
Mm-hmm.
And just could not. And it's very seldom that I can't find some type of a hand load, at least that won't shoot pretty reasonable. And I tried every trick. I got a hold of a guy that's forgotten more about reloading for precision than I will ever know. And it was like, dude, you got to help me out. I'm ready to, use this thing as a boat anchor. He gave me a couple of pet loads of his, and yeah, just not even close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, I mean, I literally thought that a lot of the reason I thought a lot of the reason that these scars people were having problems with them was because of the twist rate and the bullet weights, and people don't were putting two and two together. So I thought when FN finally came down with the 1 in 10, just like 2 years ago, that was like this gun's finally going to deliver, and I'm just shocked at how fucked up this is.
Yeah.
I'm just like, random flyers, it's just such an inconsistent gun, but it's got potential. Like even you said, like you'll get three that you're like, hey, and then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, wham, and you're like, what the fuck? And you do this enough, and it's not you. It's not you. It's not because of lock time of an automatic. It's not. It's the gun. It's just something with that gun, you know. And if you're objectively honest, you have to admit something, And I think as much as I'm crapping on the Scar 20, and again, I I used to really like them. The the reality is the AR-10, the 308 caliber AR guns are borderline shit guns as well.
Oh yeah.
Like Doc gets the DPMS to run, and he shoots great with it. But then, these guns, a lot of these guns are trying to tear themselves apart. They're on the 308 is a very high pressure round, and that direct gas of those AR-10s, even if you do pistons in them, like they're on the edge of just running one. Then you put a suppressor on them, and it's a fucking nightmare. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people don't understand, because they're on the internet and they're like, "Ooh, AR-10s are great," or the MSAS and the M110 and all these. And the reality is, people that actually run these guns and make ammo for these guns, like I think Black Hills has to make a special ammo just so that gun will run and not try to tear itself apart. That to me, that's some of the motivation why I think the Army is gone to why they're doing this M5 M7 program, because
Yeah.
they wanted a gun from the ground up that was designed to be modular but also suppressible. And the AR-10 was not designed to be suppressible. And I think I really do. I think there's problems there.
Yep. Nope. I don't disagree at all. And I think I went into the whole SCAR project with very reasonable expectations. Uh, I don't think it's unreasonable for that type of a platform to shoot inch and a quarter at 100 yards. Might take a little bit of finding a pet load to do it, but
Yeah, that gun should
I
shoot an
ran
inch and a
everything from
half at 100
150 to
yards.
175s, and it didn't. It just wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
So
that gun should shoot. I mean, I mean, you can buy hunting. I mean, you can buy off the shelf hunting guns today that'll do 1.5 MOA at
oh
100
yeah,
yards. One and a
yeah,
half
easy.
MOA is not a moonshot. It's like, and it's just the damnedest thing. Like even at 500 yards, we'd see it at 100 yards with the Scar, and we'd see it at 500 yards. It would be just like glory, and then all of a sudden, just like these crazy flyers that you just couldn't,
Yep. It
almost
it
can.
no splash at all. No clue. That one's still going.
Yeah, or we were shooting for groups at 500 yards, and we go down and look at them and be like, this looks good. Then like these crazy flyers, and it's like, what the fuck is
Hmm.
that? And so, I mean, not that, no, I don't want to belabor it, but I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, I would think you should be able to get a one. I mean, look, if the Scar 20 consistently shot a 1.5 MOA group, Doc could still be running it.
Oh, I can work with that. I
Yeah,
can
the
factor that in.
the Scar 17 that he loved, realistically, he's doing some hand loads, and you have a good day. He might touch an MOA, or like, like some crazy, like, oh fuck, this is under an MOA, but like, hoo, but it would never go over 1.5 MOA.
Yeah.
But like the Scar 20 would go from, I don't know, a 2 MOA gun to all of a sudden throw a flyer and it's a 5 MOA gun. I'm not talking about a
Hmm.
flyer. I'm not talking about a flyer from like, a sub MOA or MOA to like a 2 MOA. I'm talking like a 2 MOA to like a 5. And it was just like, what the fuck is going on with it? And again, it's so frustrating. And, we
Yep.
would have these kids roll in on our social media, and, I have the Scar, and like, they'd be like, we're talking about Doc doing something, talking about flyers or something. And I remember this one kid, he rolled in. I'm going round and round because I'm just talking to him. And he's like talking about the Navy SEALs, and he's talking about, the Scar, my Scar's super accurate and all this and that. And it's like, dude, the Navy SEALs shoot near our range. Like, I mean, they're welcome to stop by, but he's just a kid who's appealing to authority. And like finally you talk to him and he's like, I know my range is only 100 yards. And I'm like, okay, so this super accurate Scar you have that you love, that the Navy SEALs run, and is you're like, this thing is as accurate as ever. You only shoot it to 100 yards. Like, I remember Doc, when we first got the Scar 20, he was working up loads. I can't remember what it was, but something happened and bullets were getting unstable at like 400.
Ooh.
And looking back on it, it may have been the flyers. You know what I mean? Like, we thought
Hmm.
it was a stability issue, and it may have been the random flyers from day one. Because we were working up loads and chronographing it, and then doing groups, and we were walking them back 100, 200, 300, 400. And I remember something about at 400 yards, the gun would get something squirrely started happening, and we're like, ooh, we might have a stability issue here.
Were they keyholing or?
No, it wasn't a keyhole. It just, we were trying to explain the flyers,
Yeah.
and it was like, okay, we don't know. So anyway, so
So, yep. I just resigned myself to being a grumpy old bastard and shooting bolt guns.
hmm
Pretty hard to go wrong with a good bolt gun.
Hey, do you watch do you watch football, like a high school, college football?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did Michigan beat Ohio State,
Yes.
and was it some kind of big blowout?
It wasn't a blowout, but it was. I think the betting line had Ohio State as a favorite, so it wasn't really a blowout score wise, but Michigan kind of dominated the game. There was not a point in the game where I felt like Michigan was in trouble at all.
Okay, because I know that, like, we have a lot of people obviously around here that care about Ohio State. Um, and it's as a matter of fact, the Michigan Ohio State game is a tradition for deer hunting in Indiana. Where I used to hunt in Indiana at this farm before we had the range, Freeze and I would go out there and shoot, and then you'd come in and you'd watch the Michigan Ohio State game. And the guy that owned that farm graduated from Ohio State. And so that was kind of a big brouhaha. And I'd heard that, I guess, like, I guess Ohio State's been getting their ass kicked by Michigan for years now, and I guess somebody broke their leg. Apparently, somebody got hurt so bad at this Michigan Ohio State game that the cameras like wouldn't replay it. I heard that.
Yeah, that did
It's,
happen.
did you see the injury? Like, did some guy have like two extra knees on one of his legs or something? Or it's like okay,
I did not see it. I was up running around doing something
hmm
when that actual play happened. But then, like you said, they didn't go back and show any replays. Uh, but I had heard, yeah, it was pretty traumatic injury,
yeah. I've kind of started shying away from that because
possibly career ending.
oh God, really? That's
Yeah.
too bad. Because I've seen like there'll be these videos on Instagram because we have Instagram. I think it must be Instagram, and you'll see these videos of people that are doing stunts or skateboarding tricks or whatever, or they're like, is it parkour, where they jump around like monkeys on shit, and like, or you see all the videos where it works out great, but then you see videos where it doesn't, and you literally see people break their bodies. And I remember there was a video, and I think probably many of if you're on Instagram, you've seen this, and it's not even a girl, it's not even like this parkour goofy shit. It's just like women, like they're in their 30s maybe, and it's during the day and the sun is up. Like you tell like they're with their girls, and like maybe these girls were cheerleaders. And so there's a group of girls walking away from the camera, and one of the girls turns back and sees the camera and starts kind of showing off and does like this cartwheel in this parking lot, and and again, she's not 20 anymore, and she does this cartwheel and she puts her leg down and her knee bends the wrong way. And I'm like,
Ooh.
oh God. I'm just like, oh fuck. And then I watch it again. And then I'm like, oh God. I've probably watched it 20 times. But you start watching one of those, Instagram's like, ooh, you like seeing people, break their shit on it. So it starts showing me all, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't watch. Like you just see people where you're just, because you get desensitized because, it's like the Rambo movies, like, yeah, you get shot in the shoulder or you get nicked or, or people, they crash the plane and they walk away. But you see all these videos where people, they just break themselves. And
Yep.
you're just like, oh man. It's like, ugh.
The ones that make me chuckle are the idiots doing wheelies at 100 mile an hour down the interstate and they biff it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those are the ones
Yeah.
I have to watch about 20 times, and it gets funnier every single time for me because the idiots on sport bikes, and I know we probably got listeners that ride sport bikes, so it's I'm not bagging on sport bikes in particular,
I have a
but
sport bike.
the guys that are doing wheelies and lane splitting at 120 mile an hour down the interstate, or in Omaha, it's a bit residential streets. Uh, you know, stupid is as stupid does there. So I kind of get a kick out of them. Skateboarders, they've just always been expendable. Evidently, they're always crashing and breaking stuff. But
Hmm
speaking of injuries in football, I want to circle back a little bit on something we talked about here. Uh, what uh, what game was that where Dave Portnoy's all butthurt because he placed a big bet and
Oh,
the quarterback, was it Joe Burrows, had a
yeah.
had an injured hand, and because they didn't officially list him on the injury list, Portnoy is trying to sue to get his money back on the money he lost on the bet.
Now I'm gonna go on the record and state that I still, again, I'm not the NFL's target audience. So,
Yeah,
it's like, well, so I mean it's like they don't care what I think. And so with me about to say this again, I've never forgiven the NFL for all the kneeling and all the bullshit, and kneeling for the national anthem and all that shit. and I've not forgiven him, because if Donald Trump wins again, that shit's going to start up again, and fuck them, the horse they rode in on. So with that being said, I live in Cincinnati. The that quarterback Joe Burrow is a big deal here, and he is out for the year. Again, he just signed a contract for like $250 million, like 2 or 3 games before whatever, and so he's out. And I guess there's some question as to whether he was hiding an injury. And I was like, I didn't know, like Dave Portnoy. Literally, the first time I ever saw Dave Portnoy was Donald Trump was president. It was about the end of his presidency, and he sat down for an interview with this guy. And I remember watching this, and I'm like, who the fuck is this person, and why is Donald Trump talking to him? Like, I don't understand. I didn't even understand. Like, it was televised, and I didn't even understand like why, why this was even happening. Because I was like, what is this? And I've since understood. I now have a greater respect for Dave Portnoy. As a matter of fact, I was joking. I was joking with some staff members around here that I'm going to start doing the Dave Portnoy emergency press conference, like 90-second videos. It's like emergency press conference. I'm realizing like this guy's a fucking genius. He's crazy, but he's a genius. And I guess he gambles, and I guess he lost a bunch of money on the Bengals. And yeah, so I don't. I mean, can he sue? Like, I mean, I don't know. Is that going to get any traction? Like, if Joe, go ahead.
I don't think so, because Burrow started the game. Well, he was seen with some type of a protective brace on his hand before the game, but the whole beef with Portnoy is they didn't have him officially on the injured list, which he says would have influenced his betting decision. But the other thing being, at this late stage in the season, there's not a player out there who's probably not nursing some type of injury. So at what point, I guess I don't know, what the NFL rules are as far as what's the threshold for mandatory reporting and putting somebody on the injury list. As far as the lawsuit goes, it takes me back to, and we're going to cross sports a little bit, but it kind of applies, I believe. The Floyd Mayweather-Manny Pacquiao fight of the century. Floyd Mayweather was finally going to get his millions of dollars in pay-per-view, record amount of betting. I think at that time it broke all-time single fight record for, wagering. If I remember right, Mayweather...
Is Floyd Mayweather the guy who goes by, is it TMM, the Money Man?
Just Money Mayweather.
Or Money May M, so MM, yep. Money, or okay, M, okay.
Yep. Was like, I think he finally retired out at like 50-0 or 51-0, but he only had like, a half dozen or so knockouts. He just, he fought you for 12 rounds, and he was just hard to hit, but he actually was not very good at, he didn't have much power, but he was good counterpuncher. Mm-hmm. So he would just point you to death. Manny Pacquiao had been in, many knockdown drag-out fights and had one-punch knockout powers. So this was Money was finally going to get his. Basically, it was a pretty boring fight, and it went to a decision, and Mayweather won. Standard Mayweather fight. It came out about a week later that Pacquiao admitted to nursing a back injury in that fight and said he wasn't at 100%. So there were all kinds of pushes to try and, avoid the bets, get your money back. And to my knowledge, it never gained any traction.
That sounds like trying to avoid bets sounds like some shady boxing shit to me. It's like, fuck, I got bad news for you, sucker. Yeah.
And I believe the legal theory was when you make a wager, you are your own due diligence. So as long
I
as
like
there's
that.
not something illegal going on, crooked refs, in horse racing, doping, as long as there's nothing illegal going on, you are your own due diligence. You are, caveat emptor.
Yeah. And wait a minute, isn't now I'm going. So I remember when Mayweather fought as an exhibition, he fought the Irish guy with the whatever, is he Irish or
Conor
Scottish?
McGregor.
Yeah, the guy with the mouth, and uh so I kind of really knew who Mayweather was then.
Yeah.
Is Manny Pacquiao the guy who wears dresses? Do I have
No,
that right?
that would have been actually Oscar De La Hoya.
Oh shit! Sorry, I'm
Man,
gonna get hate mail. Podcast at John1911.com. Podcast at John1911.com. I'm so sorry. You know.
yeah, Pacquiao is actually I forget what office he holds, but now he's a politician in his home country in the Philippines.
Oh, really? Good for him.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, but
yeah.
there was a lot of all kinds of wrangling, trying to avoid bets and every legal opinion that I ever saw on it was basically, hey, if you're stupid enough to bet on a sport, shame on you.
But it's
There's
interesting. It's interesting that in 2023, the Bengals are getting sued or potentially, or litigation is potential over a sports book and releasing information on how it would affect the bookies laying the odds down. Okay.
Mhm.
And in what year was Pete Rose betting on baseball until he got caught? Was that 1990? When did he get? When? Because he was the 90. He won the World Series in 1990 or 91, whatever year that was.
Mhm.
But then he was, or when did he? Then there was 4,100. Then there was the hit record. Maybe that was before or after. But I mean, was it in the 90s? It's only. I mean, it's 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, betting on baseball about tore Cincinnati in half. And Pete Rose lied and lied and lied and lied and lied about betting on baseball.
Yeah.
And now we're in a situation where a dude on the internet is crying. A millionaire on the internet is crying because he lost $250,000 betting for the Bengals and is accusing the Bengals of fucking up his bet.
Mhm.
I mean, talk about a strange, strange world for
First world
Cincinnati.
problems.
Yeah, for Cincinnati, that's just crazy. Now, you know what a first world problem is? You know what a real first world problem is? Deer season comes
What's that?
along, and some guy in Nebraska decides he's going to go shoot a deer with a 50 BMG, and then is disappointed. Is disappointed that the deer doesn't get blown in half. I'm not going to name that certain person, but that person is known to appear on the John1911 podcast from time to time, and is also
that
drives race cars.
that was actually in Iowa
Okay. Oh,
during
okay.
the
Wait a
during
minute.
the when
Wait a
I
minute.
was an Iowa resident during the late doe season.
Wait a minute. Is this
And
like one of those things where people who drive cars on YouTube and they speed and then they look at the camera and say, "I'm in Mexico"? Is this one of those things? They're like, "I'm in Mexico today." I drove
I
across the
had
border.
I had a brick and mortar gun shop at the time, and a buddy of mine wanted in one of those Armalite AR-50s, that
Oh yeah.
27-pound single shot. So I
Mm-hmm.
got him one.
Mm-hmm.
And Iowa, was a shotgun state at that time for deer. But because we had such an overpopulation of deer, they had a late late bonus rifle season for antlerless deer in the southern two tiers of counties in Iowa.
Okay. So it's a
So,
shotgun state, and they're like, "Hey, we're well, hey, we're so desperate. We're getting so many car accidents. Open up rifle in this shotgun state in these two counties. What could possibly go wrong?" Dude shows up with a
literally, that's
50.
what it was. The insurance companies were raising so much hell because there were so many deer 1050s that it's like, man, we got to thin these down in these southern two tiers of counties. So there was about 20, about 15 to 20 counties, where we had a January season. And so got this brilliant idea. Well, hell, we can just set up on the edge of a field and big doe comes out and we'll just explode one with it with this 50 cal. We've seen the videos, the whole guy getting blown off the side of the mountain after being shot with a 50 cal. And so we set up and doe walks out, nice, probably 150, 160 pound doe, about 150, 175 yards. Put the crosshairs, double lunged her, squeezed her off. Doe just dropped. It's like, that's it?
Did she DRT right there, or did she even
Oh,
try at
yeah.
all?
Oh, yeah. She was dead before she hit the ground.
Okay.
Uh, but no triple backwards cartwheel through the plate glass window. It wasn't like we used a 9mm and blew both lungs out of her.
like Axel Foley getting thrown through the plate glass window in Beverly Hills
Right?
Cop. Like, psh, okay.
Field dressed her, 50 caliber hole going in, 50 caliber hole going out, and no more damage than I've seen deer do the crazy flops and flips and land funny and turn to mush inside with just regular old 12 gauge slug, but it was just like boom, boom. That's it. I paid $5 for that shot for that.
I wonder because the cops that when they show up at our range, then they have to shoot those 50s. They buy. They were $7 a shot. They're probably more now. They're Hornady. I guess I should say Hornaday. 750 grain Hornady tap ammo, but it's 50 BMG sniper ammo. And I wonder if you could legal to hunt with one of those and what it would do. Because did you shoot it with like just 50 BMG ball ammo? Do you remember what it
Yeah,
was?
yeah, it was just surplus, the cheapest 50 cal ammo, because in 2001, 2002, whatever it was, right in around there, $5 around for 50 cal ammo was, geez, are you a millionaire or something?
Yeah.
Money's no object.
Hmm.
Uh, the and probably I don't think we were technically legal because I believe the regulations, and I know it's this way in Nebraska, states that you have to use an expanding bullet. Well, in my '06, if I get really good expansion, I get 41, 42 caliber, and that's considered, pretty darn good. Uh, so, we were kind of operating on the theory of we're already punching a half-inch hole on entry. How much expansion do we need? Uh, we didn't get any, of course. It was just full metal jacket, ball ammo. But I mean, it was just a letdown. Just she just kind of legs fell out from under her, and she just didn't move.
Hmm. Well, maybe next time you can get a Rofus round or whatever they call that. Is that shoot a deer with one of those, but bring a camera. You know, if we're gonna get banned off of YouTube, we need to get like lifetime banned. Like ban like they'll ban your ban my IP fucking router. Like they're like you are banned forever. Like you can't even go to YouTube to watch a video.
Well, I did get a GoPro mount for my helmet, so uh, that's going to give a little different camera perspective. I still haven't mastered this videoing shooting like you have, but
We're working on it. You know.
yeah,
And always you kind of get out of practice. Like right now, I'm in the process of resetting up stuff for precision rifle, like setting up the target cameras because I'm
hmm
going to break out the Blaser Tactical 2. I'm way behind on a project with that, and we're going to be doing a bunch of
yeah.
that because I can't really be in the pit shooting when they're building these buildings. And so, I'm going to be doing that. And plus, it's going to be winter. I'd shoot on the rifle range and, whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, like, you kind of like, fuck, how these cameras work. And it doesn't look good. Dude, I saw a video. I saw a video today of, so like, have you ever seen, like, they'll do these sweeping 360-degree cameras? Like they'll be like, someone will be at the Oscars and they'll be like, make a big expression, and like this camera will very quickly go around them 360 degrees, and then they'll film them, and then they'll play it back in slow motion to make some dramatic thing. Have you ever seen these types of videos?
Not really.
So they'll do them. They'll do them at like red carpets, and they'll have like famous people, and they'll do this thing. So anyway, I saw one of these recently, and there was some midget guy, and I think he was a famous actor, and he's like, okay, they're like, do this, and like literally, like the camera goes like that quickly, or like it's a mechanical, it's like a robot, and it circles all around them, and then they can do this traumatic footage. Well, they play back the footage, and they had the camera set wrong, and you could barely see the top of the midget's head. It was so it was so embarrassing. It was like, oh shit. Oh my God. Yeah. So look, don't feel bad. Like that camera that they fucked that up with was probably a $300,000 camera. And they scalped the midget. So so I'll tell you, we've been going for a while, and it's been a long time. We're just catching up at this point. We can't have the podcast go on forever. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a single police blotter, and we'll go ahead and toss this. So here's the headline. Frisky swimmer caught masturbating off Georgia Beach and was arrested. And then when this person was being arrested, told the cops that they were stressed and needed an orgasm as they were being handcuffed. Can you guess the gender of the perp in this story?
Well, there's an obvious answer, but it's so obvious that obviously can't be it. So,
Frisky swimmer caught masturbating with a vibrator in front of families in Georgia Beach is seen in new body cam breaking down while telling cops that she was stressed and needed an orgasm as she is handcuffed and marched from the sand. Christina Rebels Glick, I guess she's married, who was 34 at the time, was approached by cops after families reported her pleasuring herself with a vibrator in front of children on Tybee Island, July 1st, 2021. It just now, the footage is being released. And she's not an unattractive. I mean, she's got a. I mean, she's not an. I mean, I don't know about her face. Have to see her. She's got a nice body. I mean, it's just like you're kind of like, oh God, what's this freak gonna look like? And you're like, oh. Then you're like, because you're like, girl. Then you're like, maybe she was just kind of touching herself in like the water. It's like it's kind of freaky, but whatever. And then you're like, no, she's up on the beach. It's like, oh, maybe she's under a towel and some prude. It's like, no. She's apparently got a big vibrator, wang, doing whatever she's doing with that. And then you're like, what is this person going to look like? And then you're like, well, shit, not what I expected at all. And this is one of those examples. The cops come up to her fast. She's like, what did I do? What did I do? And the cop goes, apparently you were masturbating on the beach. Looking surprised and a little embarrassed, Rebels Glick paused and replied, who saw that? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect example of, because there's body cam footage, if she had shut the fuck up and didn't keep talking, there's no way that they would have been able to prove this. Maybe they caught her with the fucking dildo out there, but and it's just like, then she starts making an excuse. She's like, well, I was stressed and I just did an orgasm. It's like, there's a lawyer going, shut the fuck up. Like, you're getting convicted, and it's like, I mean, God, she might even get labeled as a sex offender. And just, it takes all kinds. Well, this wraps up episode 323 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures of links of women pleasuring themselves with dildos, please go to the John1911 website. Wait a minute, I should rephrase that. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. I almost said something dirty. Everybody, have a good day or good night.
Have a good week, everybody.